The Holy Gospel according to John, the 6th chapter.
Glory to you, Lord.
So when the crowd saw that neither Jesus nor his disciples were there, they themselves got into the boats and went to Capernaum looking for Jesus. When they found him on the other side of the sea, they said to him, "Rabbi, when did you come here?" Jesus answered them, "Very truly, I tell you, you are looking for me not because you saw signs, but because you ate your fill of the loaves. Do not work for the food that perishes, but for the food that endures for eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. For it is on him that God the Father has set his seal." Then they said to him, "What must we do to perform the works of God?" Jesus answered them, "This is the work of God, that you believe in him whom he has sent." So they said to him, "What sign are you going to give us then, so that we may see it and believe you? What work are you performing? Our ancestors ate manna in the wilderness, as it is written, 'He gave them bread from heaven to eat.'" Then Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, it was not Moses who gave you the bread from heaven, but it is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is that which comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." They said to him, "Sir, give us this bread always." Jesus said to them, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
You may be seated. There's a saying that floats around in 12-step circles, and I'm confident you have heard it elsewhere. It goes like this: keep it simple. Keep it simple. Of course, there's a corollary to that in the 12-step tradition, and that is that what is simple is rarely easy. And so there are a variety of ways in which the people in those communities tend to talk about working to keep it simple, but knowing that in that, often we encounter difficulties. I found myself thinking about that as I wrestled with and thought about Jesus' encounter with those who were following him, those crowds who had been fed. They had been fed with great abundance from apparent scarcity. And out of that scarcity, they had all that they needed. And then all of a sudden, Jesus was gone. And so they got into the boat, and they went across the sea to find him. And when they found him, they said, "When did you leave?" And Jesus started talking to them about the reasons that they were following, because they were able to gorge themselves and fill themselves with all that they wanted, and yet they were seeking after things that were perishable. And he invited them to be about something bigger. And so they had a question. What must we do? What must we do in order to receive these gifts? And Jesus says, well, it's simple. Believe in the one whom God has sent. Believe in the one whom God has sent. And they said, well, we know that Moses sent us bread from heaven. Jesus said, well, you've got that wrong. Moses didn't send it. God sent it. And now God has sent the Son of Man to give you all that you need. Keep it simple. The challenge is that in the midst of it, we have a hard time with the core of this, because basically what Jesus says is, in the midst of all of it, believe. Believe that he is the one sent by God from heaven. And in believing, trust that he is the one who brings and indeed is the bread that is sent to nourish us with those things that we need in abundance. So believe and trust, but also know. Know that when we encounter Jesus, what we encounter is we encounter abundance that goes beyond the scarcity that we tend to get focused on. Now, this past week, I found myself thinking as I was preparing for Ruth Ekstrom's funeral, thinking about a Bible study that I was sharing with people out at the Wolf Home a few years ago. A time when the text called me to ask the question of, well, I tell them that they are the wisdom of the church. They've been living faith for a great long time, in many ways know God very deeply in ways that I still hope to attain. And I asked the group that was gathered, what are some of the things that people worry about? What are some of the things you worry about? And Ruth, without missing a beat, said, well, my mom taught me not to worry, that worrying is a sin. Because when we worry, it means we aren't trusting God. I have to admit, I was a bit taken aback, because quite honestly, I am really good at worrying. And I didn't particularly like being told what that meant, at least as Ruth's mama taught her. Now, I am pretty clear that in Ruth's 106 years, she had times when it was not easy. What she speaks is so simple, and yet it's not easy. We find ourselves in these spaces where the challenge is to get clarity and to live trusting that in the midst of all that's going on around us, we have enough to face the day. And yet, today, we hear Jesus say, believe that the Son of Man is the one who is sent by God. Believe and trust that when you encounter this Son of Man, when you encounter Jesus, that in the midst of your experiences of scarcity and fear and worry and all those things, that God is providing for you enough for the day. Know that in Jesus, you encounter abundance in the midst of scarcity. Seek after the bread that is eternal, that gives you all that you need. Indeed, it's simple, but it's not easy.